While studying at QUT, you may be asked to write a report about your research topic. If you look at QUT's SiteWrite Guide, it has information on the various sections that make up a report. Specifically today, though, we are looking at an executive summary. If we scroll down, we can see that an executive summary is a paragraph that provides the reader with a quick overview of the entire report, including its purpose, content, methods, major findings, conclusions, and recommendations. It is often easier to write the executive summary once the report has been completed. This is placed on a separate page between the title page and the table of contents. This may often be the only part of the report that is actually read. Now, the reason why that's important is because business executives are usually the people who read executive summaries. Therefore, the information that you put in needs to be very exact and precise so they know what you are talking about. It's also quite often the only part that they will read from the beginning through to the end. They'll skim other sections, but this section they'll read in its entirety. Now, the information that's here on the SiteWrite pages suggests that there's about 6 or 7 parts to an executive summary. So what we're going to do is write one sentence on each one to create the basis for you. Today we're going to assume that your research topic is assess the environmental impact of scooters and mopeds in the Brisbane area. Now, we're also going to assume that you have completed the research as well as the first or second draft of the report. This is important because you can't comment on the different aspects until the report has actually been finalised. Your first sentence that you need to write is an overview of the entire report. So here we're going to summarise what the report was about. In this case, you might write something like this. With an increasing number of cars on the road and Brisbane City's population increasing, the environmental impact of modes of transport is of growing concern. We've kept it fairly simple. The next sentence that you include is about the purpose. It's perfectly acceptable to clearly state this within your writing, or if you want to find another way of writing it, you can, but I'm keeping with simplicity today. The purpose of this report is to analyse the environmental impact of scooter usage in the wider Brisbane area, including congestion, pollution, damage to wildlife and fauna, as well as addressing health and safety. So what I've done there is I've put in a few of the more specific points that I'm going to be addressing as the report goes through. We now need a sentence about context. So what we mean by context is the different parts that you would have to consider when discussing the subject or topic so that it can be fully understood. Now, the more that you end up reading about the topic itself, the more you'll be able to define exactly what should be included here. For today, what we are going to do is we are going to add in this sentence. There has recently, 2019, been an increase in the usage of scooters throughout the city centre and surrounding suburbs. However, the concern is that these scooters are being used by those who would normally walk or use public transport and thus adding to the increase in congestion. We've now started to talk about the things that might need to be considered to analyse the topic fully. But we also need to tell the reader how we went about collecting the information for your topic. This sentence is a sentence about the methodology. My sentence looks like this. In order to gather data on scooter usage, the main provider of electric scooters, Lime, granted access to public figures between January 2018 and July 2018. These figures were analysed to assess the average number of users per day, as well as the length of usage and distance covered. So we're hinting here at the fact that we're now using statistics and that we've identified what part of those statistics specifically we are going to be addressing. The idea is that by now your reader should be interested enough to continue reading through the report. The next sentence we need to add is about the major findings. It could look something like this. There has been a significant rise in the number of scooters provided, but also a reduction in the length of the journeys. Of interest was that many of the routes went against the flow of traffic and were on pedestrian-only routes. We'll come back to this one. This is now giving your reader an idea of the sort of topics that you are looking at and the areas that you might wish to address in future. The final sentence or sentences that you write are the conclusions and recommendations. Now, your conclusion should be the main points that you want the reader to take away, and the recommendations, the way of addressing the issues that you've raised. Some tutors prefer these to be separate sentences. Others are happy for them to be combined, so it's always worth checking with your tutor because they're the one that are going to be marking your work. In this case, you could put this. The report concludes that the usage of scooters has had little to no effect on pollution, but there has been a significant increase in the number of accidents as a result of using the scooters, often leading to damage to local fauna and wildlife. The contract with Lime Scooters is due to end in Feb in 2019, and it is recommended that a second scan of the use of scooters over a similar time frame is used, although it is noted that this will be time and labour intensive as it will need to be conducted manually. What you now have is the very sound basis of an executive summary that you can take to your tutor or to the language and learning educators during drop-in sessions to check the work, or even do both. That way you can get some feedback on how to improve it. But before you do, you need to edit and proofread. So this word here says where when it should be were. Here we have the name of the company Lime spelt with a Y, but here we are referring to the fruit, so we need to change that. You'll also see here that this is in blue. Now, blue indicates grammar or tense errors, and right-clicking will go through and give you an option that you could choose. Anything that appears in red is a spelling error. That also needs to be checked. Here you can see that I've got Feb, but this is academic writing, so we need to make sure it says February. Additionally, this sentence is quite long. You could put a comma in here, or you could break it down into two smaller sentences. It's always worth remembering that anything that you can do to proofread and edit before you show this to somebody else is going to save everyone a lot of time. Good luck with your writing.